Hey everyone, welcome back to a next part of Appian Memory Game series. If you have made it this far in the memory game series, nice job. Things are starting to get fun now. In the last video, we got the cards working. When you click one, it flips and shows the number. We also started tracking which cards were selected so we could validate if they matched. Now in this part, we are going to add a few really useful features to make the game feel more complete. We will add a reset button so you can try again without reshuffling, and a play again button that gives you a fresh set of numbers. You will also see an attempt counter so you know how many tries you took, and a nice little you won message when you finish the game. These aren't just bells and whistles, but they really bring the game to life. Alright, let's get started. I am going to declare a new variable called local selected index. Let me scroll to the top and add it inside abang local variables. Alright, now that we have declared it, let's head down to the save into part of our dynamic link, where we handle the logic when the user clicks on a card. And here I am going to add another abang save to capture the positions. Local selected index is my target. I am just taking the current value of local selected index and then appending the index of the card that was just clicked using fbang index, and then saving that updated list back into local selected index. It is same as how we were storing the numbers of the clicked cards. So what is this variable for? This is going to help us track which card indexes the user has clicked. Up until now, we have been tracking the values behind the cards, like the numbers themselves. But we also need to know where the user clicked on the board. That is the actual position of the card. And why does that matter? It matters because let's say the user clicks two cards. To validate if they match, we obviously compare the numbers. But what if they don't match? Then we need to maybe show a red border to indicate they were wrong. And to do that, we need their positions, not just their values. And that's where local selected index comes in. It is going to store a list of all the clicked indexes in the order they were clicked. Let's test this quickly. I'll go ahead and click some random cards and then check the value of local selected index. You'll see something like 4, 5 and 7. These are nothing but the positions of card numbers 1, 2 and 3 respectively. And this is exactly what we want. We are now successfully tracking which positions the user has selected. Later we will use this for card styling. Alright, that's one part done. Let's move on to the next piece of logic. Now I am going to add some buttons to the interface. A reset button and a bit later a playback button too. For this I will wrap the buttons inside abang button array layout to keep them aligned nicely in a row. So let me go ahead and write this out. Now inside this I will add a reset button. Let's start with the basic structure first. Abang button widget and label is going to be reset. This is the button the user can click if they want to retry the current attempt. The numbers will stay the same but all selections will be reset. Now comes the main part. This is where we define what should happen when the user clicks reset. Firstly, we need to reset the progress. I am using local number to track how many correct numbers have been clicked in the right sequence. Basically, as the player flips the cards, we increment this variable by 1. Now in the reset button, the goal is to let the user retry the same round. So we need to clear all of the previous progress. And that's why we set local number back to 0. Then we clear the selected card. Abang save, target is my local selected card and value is null. Need to clear the selected index as well. Now we want to flip all the cards face down again. Basically, I want to loop through all the cards and set their show flag back to false, as if the board is fresh again but with the same numbers. And to do that, I am using abang for each loop. Let me show you what I am adding inside the save into. I am going to loop through each item in local generate random numbers. So that's my item. Remember, this is the list of cards and each card is mapped with two keys. Number, the value behind the card, and show, a flag that controls whether the number is visible or not. In the expression, I use abang update to create a new version of each card, where the show key is explicitly set to false. In this case, fbang item is each card in the list, and each card is a map with two fields, number and show. So when I do this, I'm saying, take the existing card and update its show property to false. And finally, I save the whole updated list back into local generate random numbers using abang save. So that whole expression returns a new list where all the show flags are reset. Then we just save that new list back into local generate random numbers. Now let's test this. I have a couple of cards that are already flipped. Now I'm gonna hit the reset button and there we go. All the cards are flipped back down. The board is clean again and the player can try the same round once more. Cool. Now let's add the second button. That one is going to be a player can button. So I'm going to drop this right below the reset button inside the same A bank button array layout. I like the reset button which lets you retry the current round with the same numbers. This button gives you a completely fresh game. New numbers, everything reset. I'll copy a few of the A bank save lines from the reset button and add them here in the playback button, as these lines do the exact same cleanup. They reset the game state. Next, I'm going to declare a new local variable. Let me scroll to the top and drop this in here. I'll call it local player can. So this variable is going to be used as a trigger to reshuffle the board whenever the player hits play again. Let me show you how this works. We are going to save a random number into this variable called local play again. But the real purpose of this line is not to store data, it is to trigger a refresh. Every time the user clicks play again, we give local play again a brand new random value using rand function. So up until now, local generate random numbers was just a static variable. Once the interface loaded, it would generate a set of cards and stay fixed no matter what. But now that we have introduced a play again button, we want to regenerate this list each time the user starts a new game. And that's where A bank refresh variable comes in. So basically this tells Appian, hey, what's the value of local play again? And if it ever changes, rerun the code inside that value parameter. The value parameter is where we define what this variable should be. In our case, a loop that creates a list of random card maps. And the second part, refresh on var change, is the real magic here. So whenever the value of local play again changes, this will throw away the old value and rerun the logic inside value parameter. We do not really care what the value of local play again is, we just need it to change. And that's why we save rand into it on button click. Let's test this bit to see it in action. I'll click a card and now I'll hit play again button and there we go, the board reshuffles instantly. Totally new numbers, no manual refresh needed. And that's the power of A bank refresh variable. Alright, now I want to make sure the reset button is only available at the right time so the user don't mess up the game flow, especially after they have made a correct move. So here are the conditions I'm using. Let me explain what these conditions mean. Local number is equal to 9 is a pretty straightforward. It means the user has won the game, as local number tracks how many numbers have been correctly selected in sequence. If it reaches 9, that means the player has completed the round perfectly. So at this point, we don't want to let them hit reset. The game is already over. They should only have the option to click play again to start fresh. Now the second condition, local validate is equal to true, tells us that the last card the user selected is correct. It's in the expected sequence, so the user is making progress. And if we let them click reset now, they could cheat. They could just hit reset after every correct guess, see the card and reset again. That's why we disable the button when validate is true. So putting both conditions together inside OR, which returns true if any one of the conditions is true. And if it returns true, the reset button is disabled. Alright, let's test how a reset button behaves when the user clicks an incorrect card. Okay, I have just clicked an incorrect card and so the reset button is enabled, exactly what we want. So local number is not 9, so the user hasn't won yet, and local validate is false because the selection was incorrect. This means the OR condition returns false. Okay, now I'm going to switch over to designer mode so we can update the layout a bit. What I want to do here is add a message for when the user wins the game and also show how many attempts it took. So here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to drag a columns layout component and drop it just above the card layout. This way, the message and attempt counter appear at the top of the screen. Just to balance the layout and give me space to show two things, a message on the left and an attempt count on the right. The middle column will be left empty for spacing. In the first column on the left, I will drag in a rich text display field. This is where I will show a U1 message when the user successfully finishes the game. Again, I'll drag in a rich text display field, but this time it is going to show the number of attempts the player has taken so far. Now I am going to switch back to expression mode to tailor this. Now let me configure the first one by using abang rich text item inside abang rich text display field. Text is going to be U1 and I want this message to be shown only when local number is equal to 9, which means the player clicked all the numbers in the correct order. So that's being handled by the show when parameter, and I'm gonna style it with positive color and medium size, so it stands out just enough but still blends nicely. Now let's move on to the last column on the right. Inside the last column of my columns layout is where I want to show the number of attempts the player has made. So I'm going to use a pair of rich text item components inside this list. The first item is just a static label. It says attempt, so the user knows what they are looking at. Now let's talk about how I'm keeping track of the number of attempts the player has made. So first, right up at the top inside abang local variables, I'm going to declare a new variable called local attempt. I am initializing it with 1 because we will consider the first time the game starts as a first attempt. Now every time the player clicks a reset button, meaning they want to retry the same board, I want this counter to go up by 1. So inside the reset buttons save into, I am going to add another abang save to update the value of this variable. This is going to take the current value of local attempt, adds 1 to it and saves it back. Now let's come back to the second part of the rich text display field where I'm actually going to show that attempt counter to the user. What I'm doing here is just pulling that number directly into the UI using abang rich text item. Since local attempt is a number, Appian automatically converts it to text for display. So I do not need to do any extra formatting, and this is gonna sit right next to the label. Setting the align parameter to the right, this is going to push the entire content of this field, both the label and the attempt number, to the right side of the column it's placed in. So visually what the user sees is something like this. Let me test this real quickly. We'll go ahead and click a random card. Oh nice, that turned out to be the correct card in the sequence. Since the card is correct, the game knows we are progressing in order, and because of that, the reset button is now disabled. Now I'll click another random card, and this time it's an incorrect number. The game logic kicks in, cards are now disabled to lock the board temporarily, and we need to either reset or play again to continue. Let me go ahead and click reset. All cards are flipped back to hidden, and most importantly, look at the top right. Attempt is now showing 2. This means attempt counter logic is working as expected. It increments only when reset is clicked. Now when they hit the play again button, which gives them a whole new random board, that should count as a fresh game, not just a retry. So inside the play again buttons save into, I am resetting the counter like this. abang save. We bring it right back to 1 to indicate they are starting over from scratch. Alright, that wraps up part 4 of our memory game. In this part, we added the reset and playback buttons, implemented the attempt counter, and displayed a U1 message when the player completes the game successfully. In the next part, we are going to focus on the styling the cards. If you have any questions or ideas you would like me to cover, feel free to drop them in the comments or reach out. I'll see you guys in my next video. Cheers. Bye-bye.